What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, as expected yesterday, the floodgates absolutely opened up for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, with the game just leaking all over the place, and now it looks like Nintendo has their work cut out for them over the next 10 days. We'll talk about that here today. Also, we are going to be taking a look at Redfall, with reviews actually going live a bit early at times yesterday, and all kinds of footage leading to some questions for the latest Xbox release. And we'll also be taking a look at Sony in a recent interview, talking a bit more about their live service games. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below as we head towards 700,000 subscribers. And we're gonna be starting today with Star Wars Jedi Survivor, as we had some new information released around a recent patch, which we can see this posted up over on Twitter from the Star Wars Jedi Survivor EA account, where they have two different patches laid out here. The first one went live actually on the 1st, with the other one going live today, May 2nd, and that's for PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. And there's quite a list of stuff here, which goes over things like the crashes that people were experiencing, and that was pretty frustrating, obviously, to just randomly be kicked out of the game. And that was one of my biggest sticking points at the time for Cyberpunk over anything else. And in this case, they also had to fix issues with different bugs for certain visual effects not displaying correctly, and even performance being mentioned here, and image quality. So I am curious to see what kind of effect we have here, but that's the biggest situation right now, is that the first impression has been made and people are choosing to kind of sit this one out for now. I even noticed that on Amazon, the game actually went down in price about $10 with a flash sale or a coupon that was applied. Wario64 was tweeting about that one. So it's just, Jedi Survivor has its work cut out for it now after the initial reviews and stuff that went live talking about this. It's definitely made an uphill battle here for Respawn. Also, we know a very important studio for Nintendo is Monolith Soft. While they do make Xenoblade, and they've certainly made quite a few of them this generation so far with the Switch, they also run support on all other projects for Nintendo, and very important ones like Breath of the Wild and soon to be Tears of the Kingdom. So it's no surprise to see that they're actually raising salaries at the company. And you can see this posted up over on their website, saying they'll be raising the basic salary April 2023, pointing out the starting salary even for new graduates increasing by about 22%, but also significant increases across the board for those basic salaries. And they do point out price increases in general, with inflation as being one of the big driving forces here. But overall, just, again, retaining talent, especially at a studio like Monolith Soft that is so core and integral for Nintendo's plans, certainly going up to their next generation, is, I think, very important. Monolith Soft has easily proven themselves time and time again, and, you know, I'm very curious to see what Monolith Soft can do with Nintendo's next offering, their next platform, because every time Nintendo shows up with a system, whether it's the Wii, the Wii U, or the Switch, Monolith Soft stretches that system to its limits and shows us things that we didn't think would be possible. And I think they're going to do it again, while in a more supportive role with Tears of the Kingdom. Oh, and here's a bit of a strange story. We know Twitter, with Twitter Blue, allows people to upload video clips, I think up to an hour long. Well, now we're starting to see copyrighted work show up, and in fact, the other day, you could see this posted up by Paul Tassi over on Forbes, the entire Super Mario Bros. Movie was just posted. Now, from what I could tell, because I even saw it show up, I was like, this seems odd that it's just here. It was in two different tweets, because it was like an hour long, and then the other one was like 40 some odd minutes or something. It looked like it was like a cam recording of the movie theater, but person just said, hey, you know what, here's the whole Super Mario Bros. Movie. And in fact, it accumulated 9 million views on Twitter before it was pulled down. It's just not really something you would expect when you go on Twitter. And obviously, with the Super Mario Bros. Movie being incredibly popular, and Nintendo and Illumination, trust me, being very vigilant, we'll say, with those copyright takedowns, surprising to see it up there for so long. But I guess that's just another thing to be wary of, with Twitter allowing just seemingly hour or so of footage per tweet, and it kind of being the Wild West right now. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I had mentioned yesterday that I had reason to believe that the game was being dumped online, and seemingly after the news wave went live, it was probably like an hour or two later, there was a mad scramble online. As yes, the game was just available for people to download and plug into emulators or on their hacked Switches, and it spread like a wildfire online. I mean, seriously, people were posting images and videos and all kinds of stuff around the game that still has another 10 days before it comes out, and it was popping up online with places like VGC here, where they say The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has leaked online nearly 2 weeks ahead of its official release date. And I had some people messaging me over and over again on Twitter and social media, letting me know that it is all over the place. Private Discord channels were posting up images of this, even impressions already of people trying out the game. And it was even being streamed a couple of times throughout the day yesterday, whether it was on Twitch or on YouTube. Nintendo seemed to get involved, but it took like an hour or so. I mean, there are people who were just watching the entire opening series of the game. And yeah, a lot of it was being spoiled. Like, it just outright was, hey, look, there's the opening to the game. Here are these little details we continue to review through this footage, before Nintendo finally showed up and had the stream pulled down. But it doesn't stop there, as more and more people continue to stream this game. Full playthroughs are probably going to be available before the game hits store shelves May 12th officially. And because this is one of the most anticipated games of the year, and in some cases, the most anticipated game of the entire Switch generation, it's no surprise that it's getting this kind of interest online. It is a little surprising to me that it got out there this early. I figured it might get out there, say, the week of release. So what is coming out on the 12th, maybe by, I don't know, the 8th or the 9th, it would find its way online. But seemingly after those Mercari images and listings started to appear, and I guess they got shipped out, all of a sudden we did start seeing it kind of pop up online and get dumped from a physical cartridge. Doesn't necessarily mean it was from that Mercari listing, although there are some weird things going on there too, where people are saying that some of the listings are being canceled now, and it's some odd things there. It wouldn't shock me though if Nintendo realized what was happening and tried to sort out a warehouse leak of some kind, but generally when one thing like that happens, hard to believe it's not finding its way out the back door other places. Now, while there is an entire story and lore obviously that can be spoiled, I guess the one positive here is most of the stuff in something like Tears of the Kingdom that we've been looking forward to is more the gameplay and the mechanics, not necessarily the entire narrative. Again, while that's interesting, I think people are excited to try to build all kinds of crazy contraptions in Tears of the Kingdom and probably skydive over and over again. But still, having the final boss and potentially other events and twists in the game spoiled would be pretty frustrating. So I'm going to give you that big warning, of course. Be careful out there on Twitter, YouTube, other places, as people are trying to spoil this game even in the replies for different Zelda tweets. And you know what? That's most likely going to happen to Nintendo, and I'm curious how they deal with that. Do they turn off replies? Do they start trying to copyright strike any images that are appearing on Twitter? I guess we'll see, because Nintendo, they got a ways to go before release day. Next up, let's talk about a positive update for Xbox, which I'll admit has been kind of difficult to find over the last several weeks. But one thing that people have been kind of frustrated with is the direction of the dashboard, as you have these really cool dynamic backgrounds, but Microsoft's been sort of working in the direction of covering that up with all kinds of advertisements and larger than necessary tiles for your different games. And now there appears to be a new dashboard that's going to be fixing some of that. And you can see this posted up over on news.xbox.com. This is currently in sort of their alpha skip ahead and alpha rings program. So some people do have this if they're opted in. Otherwise, this will eventually get out to the official updates, but you can see the image of it, and they basically shrank most of those icons for your games outside of the one all the way to the left that you're most likely playing at that time. And that way you can get a nice shot of your dynamic background, which is great. They do still have advertising in the bottom, which you can see like the Elite controller. You can see one for Game Pass with Hi-Fi Rush down there. And they weren't going to eliminate the advertisements because obviously they probably work. It's right there when you turn your Xbox on. I was just always more frustrated, as many other people were, with things like the Halo Infinite dynamic background, which was really cool at the time, being completely covered. Even right now I have still that reactor one set up that it's a callback to the original Xbox is completely covered up. So really happy to see them going in this direction, which more or less mirrors several of those mock-ups that went over a couple weeks ago. So for now, if you wanted to check out the new dashboard, you would just have to opt in through the Xbox Insiders program. Otherwise, hang tight. They'll probably be rolling this out after they make sure there's no major bugs or anything through testing. Next up, let's talk about Redfall, which was certainly talked about a lot yesterday online, and it's kind of felt like a sloppy rollout. Overall, there seemed to be confusion with embargo timing to where reviews were just getting posted up early, whether it was on YouTube or on different websites, or even just impressions being given on Twitter. It was all over the place. And in fact, Xbox or Bethesda, Microsoft, somebody was out there copyright striking and knocking out tweets that had early footage of it as it could. And it even got to the point where it seemed anyway that their banner on the Redfall account was hit by a copyright strike. It was, again, weird stuff out there, but like some of it was screen captured, and by now reviews should be live, but you can see this by Paul Tassi, who said that the mixing up the 11 a.m. embargo with 11 p.m. embargo, and I actually think the embargo was set for 8 or 9 p.m. Again, it's kind of all over the place, and not a great look considering there are people who are already playing the game by changing their Xbox to New Zealand time. So reviews are out technically after this game really released, but ACG, who's a very trusted reviewer overall, said it's one of the worst games so far in 2023. There was another one, I think by Noisy Pixel, if I'm not mistaken, that gave it like a 4 or a 5 out of 10. Yeah, it's not looking great for Redfall right now. I was hopeful that Arcane would put out a game that has good critical appeal to it, good reception, maybe hit somewhere in the 80s, because Xbox it's been going through it recently, with the big CMA block being a huge negative overall for the company and the brand, and now with one of the more anticipated titles that got delayed out of last year, seemingly having a lot of issues, and that's just outside of that 30 FPS cap with quality mode for the console. It seems like there's issue with AI, visuals, the structure of the game. There's a lot of concerns right now, and much of this is just being demonstrated through video clips online of people, yes, already playing the game before that embargo lifted. I will be checking out Redfall when it goes live. In fact, by the time you're seeing this video, I've probably already played several hours of it. I'll record some footage and give my thoughts on the opening couple of hours of the game. I was very hopeful for Arcane to show up here with something interesting like a Redfall, but it's just, Xbox has really had a hard time recently, and I was hoping this would at least give them a bit of a boost, but hey, we'll see when the reviews start to go live and Metacritic gets updated exactly what they have here with Redfall. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Sony, PlayStation Studios, and their big live service initiative that they continue to push along with some of these more recent studio acquisitions. Think of Haven and Firewalk. Well, in a recent interview with GamesIndustry.biz, Herman Holst and Firewalk studio heads decided to talk about some of their strategies going forward when it comes to these multiple live service titles that we can expect over the next 4 or 5 years. We can see this, though, post up over on Games Industry, starting with PlayStation Studios head Herman Holst was keen to remind them that live service doesn't automatically mean the company is making 10 Fortnites or Destinies. Quote, "We understand the competitive environment that is out there and the time investment from players that live services offer. And we want to deliver the highest quality games. There is a risk that we talk about live service in generic terms as if it is a single genre or even a single business model. PlayStation Studios are making a variety of games that could be referred to as live services, targeting different genres, different release schedules, and at different scales. We are also creating games for different audiences, and I take confidence from our track record in creating worlds and stories that PlayStation fans love." So I do think this was an important thing to address, because we all think live services and immediately go, okay, Destiny, Fortnite, Apex Legends, anything Battle Royale related, PUBG, and it's like, are we just going to get a bunch of those necessarily following that same formula? Well, if PlayStation is this confident and pushing for 7 or 8 more live service games, I would hope that it wouldn't necessarily be that exact same formula. And in fact, the biggest thing they can try to do is rework the live service field or genre and try to disguise some of these games so they don't feel like the cookie cutter setup. And that would be hard to do, but I would like to think that they at least had a plan set out before they jumped into the deep end of live service games by acquiring some of these studios like Firewalk. And in fact, Firewalk is developing a live service game, as we've talked about previously, and they're going to be putting it on the PlayStation and PC. It makes sense to do that day one, even because you were looking for a large monthly active user count. And Herman Hulst still, as mentioned here, kind of coy about it. Oh, some will be PC and PS5, others will just be PS5. It'll be a game-by-game basis. However, if it's free to play, it certainly makes sense to drop it on as many platforms as possible. And let's face it, Sony's not exactly going to run around trying to throw it on the Xbox or the Switch. The PC, though, makes a lot of sense next to the PS5. So we'll see how Sony is able to mold some of these diverse genres, as they're mentioning here, to the live service formula. Things like Twisted Metal, apparently supposed to be live service. We know about The Last of Us Factions. Is that going to be similar to The Division 2, or is it going to be its own thing? So a lot of questions, a lot of things for them to prove going forward, and hopefully this showcase coming up by the end of May is able to answer some of that. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, are you going to try avoiding the Zelda Tears of the Kingdom leaks and spoilers leading up to release? 79% say yes, I'm already muting, avoiding keywords. 21% say no, I want to see the spoilers. And yeah, I saw some comments that were like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I just want to see what's going on in this game. It's been so long. I'm going to get most of my enjoyment out of just the gameplay itself and creating different things and exploring. So I would like to see how the game starts. I would like to see some of the different events in the game, those sorts of things. So I understand most people are going to try to avoid it, but I'll admit, from what I've seen in the last 24 hours, people seem pretty dead set on trying to spoil different parts of this game by surprise tweeting or replying to things. You don't necessarily notice it until you scroll past it. It's going to be tough out there, so good luck to everyone who's trying to avoid these spoilers. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Jake saying, I absolutely agree. There are too many good old games at great prices for these AAA studios to justify charging $70 for an incomplete product. I picked up the entire Yakuza collection on sale on Steam for $35 last week. What a steal. Yeah, that's gonna take you some time to get through. And I actually feel like that's sort of the, not necessarily new currency, but definitely the new thing that these developers and publishers are striving for is time. Time investment is becoming the big thing now, considering live service titles is the big push right now for the industry. We just talked about Sony and PlayStation making a big push for it. And eventually, you just don't have enough time. Like, there are so many games out there that you will go back to your backlog and say, okay, you know, I'll play this game that I've been meaning to for a while. I already own it. I don't have to buy the new $70 game, and maybe I'll pick that one up when it's cheap and skip out on the other new release. Or I'll play the free-to-play game like a Fortnite that I always have, and that's where I'll get my enjoyment. So yeah, as we go forward, it will, I think, be more and more difficult for these $70 games that come out in questionable condition to be able to pull people in day one. And it's something we'll keep an eye on as we go through this generation. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, whether it's going to be Nintendo's struggle over the next 10 days to contain some of these Zelda leaks. Do you think they have any chance at that? And then also, what about Redfall? Did you get a chance to play it maybe last night when it went live? What do you think of it? And then Sony making this big push for the live service setup. Do you think they're going to be able to maybe shake things up in that part of the industry? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.